Japanese Imperial Forces on Clark Field in Pampanga. By mid-January 1942, after the surprise attack on the American fleet in Pearl Harbor, Allied troops were on the retreat on all fronts, from the Malay Peninsula, Singapore, Hong Kong, and across the Pacific and Indian Oceans. The Allies faced defeat after defeat at the hands of the Imperial Japanese forces. Allied cities began to fall to the Japanese threat. Japanese forces were advancing steadily from northern and southern Luzon, quick on the heels of the USAPE forces, beating a hasty fighting retreat that, as part of War Plan Orange 3, would see them defending the Bataan Peninsula, holding out for this hope until help arrived. As the last Philippine forces streamed into the peninsula, bridges were closed and the defense line prepared on a line stretching from Abucay in the west to Abucay on the east coast. Straddling this line, virtually unoccupied, were the jungle slopes of Mount Mao. The easternmost flank of this line, guarding the coastal fish ponds and flat paddies, were the fresh and well-trained troops of the elite 57th Infantry Philippine Scouts. As part of the U.S. Army's Philippine Division, the Scouts were well-trained, loyal, and excellent marksmen. While untried in combat, they were to form the buttress of the defense of the eastern Abucay line. Equipped with a fine semi-automatic Garand rifle, the Scouts awaited their coming onslaught. The initial Japanese onsite attacks were led by men who threw themselves into the USAPE barbed wire defenses, forming a human bridge of corpses through which they could attack. By sheer weight of numbers, the Japanese attack managed to reach part of the Philippine Scouts' lines, and heavy hand-to-hand fighting ensued. Within the Philippine Scouts' lines, Private Narciso Piliano was manning his waterproof 30-caliber machine gun. His A-gunner had already been killed at the outset and he was alone in his position. Japanese soldiers were cut down in droves, approaching the lone gun where his weapon suddenly jammed. Grabbing his 45-caliber M1911 pistol, Private Piliano downed a further 5 Japanese until the attackers closed him at bayonet range. As a Japanese soldier lunged at him, Piliano grabbed the man's bayonet, cutting off one of his own fingers. He managed to grab the gun and stab the outcoming soldier. Another Japanese then lunged at him again. Lifting the Arizaka rifle he had just used, he emptied a round into the charging Japanese, killing him. Piliano was discovered badly wounded, surrounded by his victims, but alive. His exploits won him the Distinguished Service Cross. The initial Japanese assault on the USAPE defense lines met with total failure. At the end of the attack, over 300 dead Japanese littered the Allied lines. 2 USAPE units had met their foe for the first time and stood their ground. In the Abucay battle, the first Congressional Medals of Honor in the Second World War, were awarded the Medal of Philippine Scouts, while the virtually untrained 41st Infantry Philippine Army earned the distinct honor of being awarded a double Presidential Unit Citation for doggedness and tenacity in battle. The defense of the Abucay line against the Japanese attacks were among the very first Allied victories in the Pacific Theater of War. Eventually, bereft of reinforcements and supplies, exhausted from constant battle, the defenders of Abucay had no recourse but to fall back.